talk about. I'm going to go over 8 practices, show my friends, I hope you all tweet them and say, hey, you guys are doing a great job. I'll go over the 8 practices, and then I'm going to dig into 3, probably quickly because we don't have a lot of time. Okay, so what does it take for public relations, communications, I'll even say marketing, to realize that we have a lot of work to do and a lot to embrace, and that we have to take the best of the traditional forward? I got a really big wake-up call in 2003 because I was in a pitch meeting with a client. They were launching a new product, and I was there with my team, and we had prepared, we had our deck ready, we were going through our presentation saying how we were going to promote this new product, figuring we're hitting all the channels. And at the end, the CEO said to me, yeah, but where's the new stuff? Okay, I never wanted to feel that way again. I was writing about blogs, but not applying it. So, for everybody, starts with that same feeling of reluctancy or this doesn't apply to me. Well, no. Now I've learned to become proactive. And what's on the screen is to say, you know, even as we become proactive, sometimes we still have this need to say, let's separate a little bit. Maybe it is still traditional public relations and communications over here. Maybe the digital and the social is in another neat little box. Well, sure, in a perfect world, maybe that might work or might not, but that's not our world. No, it's happy chaos. It's a mix. You can't separate, you have to embrace. And if you're in communications, then you know it's your job to understand how that customer wants their information, how they want to interact with it, how they want to share it, if they want it on their tablet, if they're going to look at it on their smartphone. It's up to us to get the message and the brand across, and that's a really big job. So part of this embracing is being proactive, not waiting for somebody to tell you to take on a new practice, but finding that practice within your own organization or within yourself and saying, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go educate others. So another reason why all these practices came to being is because there's so many stories to be told. And this is just basically a landscape picture of how you can tell it to mainstream media. You can go to your top tier newsmakers, you could funnel it down to lower newsmakers, you can go to your bloggers or on all these different levels. Yeah, we know that, right? We can go right to our customers. But in your companies, I can't tell you how many times I walk into a new client's office and we're talking about, okay, so let's kind of get an audit going, and we really drill down, and there's 30 Facebook pages, there's 100 Twitter feeds. I can't tell you how many YouTube channels there are, because it's not just the communications department, we know, telling the stories, it's everybody. So that can be one of the most frustrating, but yet challenging, and maybe an opportunity for us to do something about it. So this is where I start. The new practices start by saying, you know what, good communication starts on the inside. Step back. Ask yourself a question. If you are not communicating well internally, then how are you going to effectively communicate your brand externally? You're not. This is a holistic approach. This is that scary hybrid, but it's really something that we have to think about, because in the scheme of things, and I'll tell you exactly what this slide says because you probably can't read it, but it says that all those layers, all those executives, they want to be on blogs because they're thought leaders, so we need to be talking. The marketing department says, oh my gosh, we've got all this great content. Okay, let's get it out there because we have to drive sales. We've got to get people to the website. We need to capture those leads. The PR people are all, oh my gosh, there's so many things going on. We have to listen and respond to the public. HR is salivating, right? They're salivating over social networks. Why? Because they're going to find the best talent, and they're going to recruit. They're going to save money doing it. And then we have our salespeople who are finally saying, you know what? This is relationships, and I can get leads. I remember training a mid-sized organization, sitting with the salespeople. I walked in, they're like this. They did not want to know anything about social media. After a few training sessions, I had some of the older demographics in the group tell me they wanted to blog. Things change. In any case, all these people want to participate, but that's not what necessarily happens. This is a happy picture. Oh, who owns social media? Oh, we all do. Let's build the foundation together. Let me help you with some bricks. No. When I go in, sometimes with educational institutions, they're throwing bricks at each other because some industries are really, really siloed. In a perfect world, yes, we should be working together. There is, in fact, an opportunity. But I want to point out, because we are communications professionals, if you're in PR or marketing or whatever facet, here's what you need to know. You are socially career-minded. Not just because I'm saying it. I mean, there's actually that's an infographic that was pulled from Jeremiah Aoyang at Altimeter, as well as some LinkedIn survey data. And it basically says, it doesn't come out and say, oh, communications professionals, you are socially career-minded. No, but what it says is that the people that organizations are looking for, the people that organizations need, well, guess what? They are multitasking. Oh, hello, that's me right here. They know how to report ROI to executives. Well, if you're in communications, you better know how to do that. They're working as liaisons, multifaceted, with different departments, cross-departmentally working on different programs. Customer service centric. Okay, I had my name all over JDC's news releases about 9 years ago. I was in customer service. Every customer called me. And I didn't say, nope, not my job. Absolutely not. I made sure that they got to the right dealer. I made sure that if they needed some information on their products, that they got it. So really, we are very well suited. These new practices are because we have the skills. We have what it takes. Add technology into that, and we're unstoppable. Okay, so what does this lead up to? This leads up to the fact that we're changing. We feel that our roles are changing. We're working with new people. This diagram, basically what it says is that as a PR communications professional, I stand here, but based on my new roles and activities, which we're going to go through, I step into a hybrid box. And the reason being, okay, this isn't an org chart. Okay, it lays flat. It's not a hierarchy. It's flat. I'm in the box, and I know I need to be working with my brand people. Okay, so whether it's the branding agency or it's in-house, because suddenly, what's happening to that voice? What's happening to the brand voice? And is it getting fragmented? So I really, really need to work with them. I'm working with marketing and advertising. I always did before, trying to time, you know, we'd get an editorial placement in the magazine, we'd have an advertisement the next month, so much more than that. We are working together. First of all, we're sharing our analytics, our metrics, so that we can build a better case for executives because programs are more holistic and we want to report together. But I'm also helping because I tell an objective story and because I'm a relationship builder. And in some cases, marketing and advertising need help that way. So we are more in collaboration with our programs, definitely working with those digital creatives. Whether it's ideas that I'm building a story, or it's web-based, it's video, it's SEO. These are things I never did before. So there you have it. I'm in the box, and I'm working with my marketing brothers. Doesn't stop there, because when you have new practices, your tentacles are reaching out to almost every department that participates in social media. That's what really makes you valuable, is the fact that the more you can get yourself in to guide the communication with other departments. I'm working with IT, I'm working with legal, I'm working with sales. In many cases, they're a part of the strategy and the planning. Sometimes I just pull them in for different programs. Don't ever write a social media policy without legal, because you might as well write that policy and then wait a year. Bring them in first. Same thing with IT. Thinking about other departments that need to be a part of the process. So this, in essence, as we branch out, makes us more valuable. It all comes down to our roles and responsibilities. You know what? Yes, I did become a research librarian, and probably so did you. If you ever wanted to bring social into your company, into your agency, and in-house to your brand, you got case studies, you started to learn, you did it on your own time. We listened more, we all know this, we became conversationalists, we kept climbing new levels to do new things, viral marketers. We're more tied to the market, so we're almost market analysts. We're web marketers, we're customer service, I said that before. We can call ourselves social media professionals. At the very top, we are the strategists. I'm going to go over the green diagram in a second, because as you do that, all those things that I just said, that's climbing a ladder in your company. When you begin at the bottom, you know that you have no social media experience whatsoever, and that's expected. You're only doing traditional communications. You bump it up a notch, and suddenly you're dabbling in social media and you're learning. You step it up one more notch. Here's where that first diagram comes into play, where suddenly you're the hybrid with all the marketing disciplines around you, and you're now working and understanding. You're talking their language. Who would have ever thought we'd understand those web analytics and SEO and really dive into it? And video. I can even edit my own videos today through YouTube. Who would have thought? And on my Mac as well. Step it up another notch. It's the last diagram I showed you, where you're now working with all departments cross-functionally. When this happens in your organization, you start solving the problems that keep the executives up at night. It's always been our job. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that before. Well, guess what? There's some real social media problems. And these 8 practices address problems and make people feel better. Make executives say, okay, that's what you're doing. Okay, got it. We have a strategy here. Okay, you're actually being a pre-crisis doctor. I'm getting ahead of myself. But you sit at the boardroom table, and that's where you want to be. That's where we always wanted to be. So, here we go. PR has expanded, and there are 8 new practices. Every single one of them is strategic. No longer do we want to be seen as those pushers of the news releases. You know, I've heard that way too many times. Oh, they're the people who send out the news releases. And then what? No, that's not it at all. These practices, I'm just going to say them really quickly, then we'll run through and you'll meet my friends. Number 1 is the PR policy maker. Number 2 is the internal collaboration generator. Number 3 is the PR technology or tech tester. Number 4 is the comms organizer, which is short for communications organizer. Number 5, the pre-crisis doctor. Number 6 is the relationship analyzer. Number 7 is the reputation task force member. That's a lot. And number 8 is the master of the metrics. Okay, meet my friend Diane Gomez. At any point, please, if you think Diane's doing a good job as a PR policy maker, tweet her. I put her handle up there. Diane works for the Public Relations Society of America, which is the largest public relations association. She had her hands full when she was tasked with doing the social media policy, not just for employees, volunteers, leaders, and 35,000 members. I believe that public relations has to be on that team to do the policies. Diane was in charge of creating the policy objectives, realizing that it wasn't just communications objectives. HR had objectives, legal had their own objectives, marketing, membership, because it's an association. She knew. She coordinated the whole policy process between different departments. Diane was responsible for auditing. This is tough. Do you know how many profiles PRSA has? She had to audit the profiles with the different departments, because in order to build a policy, a good policy, you have to uncover the liabilities. Okay, you go through a matrix that asks all these questions to find out, where are we in trouble? Are we going to be in trouble with our networks and maybe at risk with viruses, or are we going to be in trouble legally with intellectual property. It's all there. That was her process. She also had to communicate the policy to all these people. And not only that, but she involved them in the process, created a survey, shared it with the leaders, got the feedback, put it back into the cycle, and then finally rolled out. That's a PR policymaker. That is strategic. And you know what? Does that help the executives? Absolutely, to feel comforted that there's going to be guidance and training and governance. I'd say so. So Diane, if she was here, I'd make her stand up and I'd applaud her. Number 2 is my friend Michael Burrito. Anybody know Michael? Name sound familiar? Okay, Vice President, Edelman Digital. He is an internal collaboration generator. Why? Because he realizes the importance of internal collaboration. He knows that when you collaborate on the inside, you are in fact innovating. Michael uses tools and technology for his teams. So he's on Basecamp with his teams because they have great project management schedules, there's alerts, you can edit documents in real time, everybody's on the same page, everybody's managing, and it all makes sense. He also implements real-time tools. He uses Yammer so that he can set up groups where people can congregate around topics and innovate. So these are some real great uses of technology, understanding the sharing needs at different levels, and he also likes to use a content library so people can pull from a repository, because that's really important too. If you're going to have an effort, don't make it disjointed. You're going to work together, and communications professionals are now using technology much more strategic. And you know what bucket that affects? The productivity bucket. It really is time efficiency, and less time saves money. That's Michael's book, just so you know. If you are interested more on what happens internally in the organization, he wrote Smart Business, Social Business. Highly recommend it. Read the book, loved it. Okay, Jason Kinsler, he's number 3. He's the PR tech tester. Jason is the founder of Pitch Engine. I use Pitch Engine because you can create a pitch, and it's a social media release. It's highly interactive, people pull from it. Great, great tool. Jason is a tech tester. It's interesting. He was a former reporter turned public relations professional. So he knows that technologies can have some real applications, that he's going to get good use out of them. He's going to go broad-based and then drill down to see what his clients need. He also knows that he's got to test technology. And in order to do that, sometimes that's outside of your workday. He devotes 30 minutes a day. That's devotion, okay? Every day to testing new technology, and he makes sure that when something hot is out, he's beta testing it. That's a PR tech tester. We're not waiting. Back in the day at my old agency, and I was the owner, and this is kind of sad, the web people, and we were a marketing communications firm, and PR communications had its own division. We'd wait for web and digital creatives to give us the technology that we were going to use, whether it suited us or not. We didn't roll up our sleeves. We didn't make suggestions. We didn't say, no, that doesn't work. Amtrak? No, that's not a technology for us. We want something that's going to suit us. So now we're able to determine that, and it's really important. So think about that tech tester. It's my friend Priya Ramesh. She's from an agency, CRT Tanaka, which is in the US, and she is a comms organizer. In order to be a communications organizer, which a lot of your function is organizing content within the communications department as well as other departments, you also really have to be listening. You are listening first so that you can hear the pain or the happiness or whatever the case may be, so you can close the gap between what's being said and what you're actually sharing. And what I love about the comms organizer is that you also take the opportunity to educate others within your company. So Priya works very closely with customer service. After she's listening, and whether you're developing new content or curating, you're working with other areas like customer service so that there is a listen, a monitor, listen, response type of strategy. And this, yes, is it more work? Absolutely. However, when you learn to use technology, it cuts back on the work and you create efficiencies. And when that wheel is working, you know, if you're an oiled machine, you will be that much more effective with your communication. Mary Barber, she is a pre-crisis doctor. She's CEO of the Barber Group. Mary's out in Alaska, beautiful, beautiful state. I had the pleasure of going out there to visit with her in PRSA. She is a pre-crisis doctor because she is working with a brand that dictates the fact that you have to be so proactive with crisis. No longer are you called to the table when crisis strikes. That's not how it works anymore. Mary thinks about her big comment response chart and how she's listening, evaluating, and responding, but in such a way that it's matching the message, the timing, to the medium. Mary knows that when you're out there on Twitter and something happens, you have maybe a 1 hour to 2 hour window, no more 24 hours, no more 48-hour news cycle. No way. She knows that if crisis happens on YouTube, what's the proper response? YouTube. Now, perfect example. I think it was just recently, I want to say one of the CEOs, and it's slipping the example, but his PR team advised him to do a public blog response. Back in the day, we would not have known. It would have been a statement that went out over a news release and would not have been as effective. It was in response to some negative publicity. So we have to know these things. Being a pre-crisis doctor means understanding every level of escalation and having the opportunity to catch it, to know who's at that level, who's going to respond, and never, hopefully, letting it get to the crisis stage. Will it happen? Absolutely. Will you have your plan in place, and will that plan be coordinated with other departments? Yes, if you're a pre-crisis doctor. Okay, there's a familiar face. I couldn't find a relationship analyzer, so I had to stick myself in there. However, I challenge any one of you, if I go through this and you tell me you're a relationship analyzer, I will add you to my presentation, the first one who tells me that they are, I'd be happy to. As a relationship analyzer, you know, I grew up in public relations. I know the value of the strategic relationship, obviously. I don't just build. I analyze. I visualize. So, for example, on Twitter, an important network for me. I've gotten a lot out of Twitter. I use a mention map. Mention map, one word, 2 P's on the end. I can visualize my network around me. I can see a snapshot of deep orange lines showing great connections, saying, what am I doing right with these people? Whatever I'm doing here, and who is that influencer, by the way, and how can I leverage them more? But whatever I'm doing there, why are these weak gray lines to all these other people? And how can I increase or move those relationships up the stairway? I can do the same thing with a Facebook touch graph. I can find 50 people who are the closest to me on Facebook. When I roll over their names, I can see who they're connected to in my network and how closely. How do I leverage them to get to somebody who's farther away from me? Every network is different. You're looking at your networks differently. You're growing relationships. You're growing it for the long term. The relationship analyzer isn't just a build it and done. Not at all, because you want to capitalize on every influencer, on every possible connection that makes sense. And it is just a snapshot. And things change. You're going to have strong relationships, and others will build, and others will move. But it's that whole management process and being strategic. And when you do this for your brands, it's much more effective. So that's the relationship analyzer. This is also my made-up character. His name is Reppy Manager, and he is Director of Sentiment on Steroids. Any one of you, I challenge you again, come be on the Reputation Task Force. If you're on the Reputation Task Force, number one, you're building the human face of the company. Number two, not only are you concerned about sentiment and always monitoring very closely, because that's how you can catch what's going on with the brand, the image, the reputation, the negative, but you're also educated internally because you know everybody else is talking in your company. So you're bringing education. Here you're working with the brand folks. What's the voice? You know, how do you not fragment the brand? What's that tone? What's that style? Being in an integrated marketing agency, my agency of the past, one thing I thought was very strange. Here I have my communications department, and there is a advertising and creative department, and they build the brand style guide. I said to myself, even back then, gosh, isn't that so strange? They're doing the voice of the brand for one of our clients. That's a little disjointed. That would never happen today if it was the same company, because you have to be integrated. If you're on the reputation task force, then you understand the brand and you're educating others on the value. And that's one of the biggest things, that when you're on this task force, you're growing it from department to department, from person to person, because that's the way the brand really will be seen in a favorable light. So it's an important part of the company, whether the reputation task force is organic, whether somebody points at you and says, build it, whether you just choose to do it on your own. Communications professionals are poised, and it should be a part of their job. Lastly, is the master of the metrics is my friend Valerie Simon. She's at the Summit Medical Group. She's also my co-founder with PR Stud Chat, which is our community for public relations professionals, students, and educators. And Valerie, she knows, she takes pause when it comes to metrics, because there's so many metrics out there. That's probably one of the problems, is not looking at the metrics and saying, this is what the executives want. This is what some of the other business stakeholders want. This is what the departments and the community managers want. It's understanding there's goals and objectives, and your metrics have to show that something is working. What Valerie does, when we look at the metrics, we know it's leads and sales, we know it's productivity, and we know sometimes it's a mission. Let's say if it's a nonprofit. She uses metrics to save money for recruiting. They're very focused on those inevitable hiring needs and using social networks. So she looks at the opportunity to shorten the hiring sales cycle. She looks at the quality of the hire and how much money did that possibly save. So right there, those types of metrics are a higher level ROI bucket. Now that's only one type of being the master of the metrics, but when you're the master of the metrics, you're not looking at the vanity numbers. Okay, great, you have 10,000 Twitter followers. No. Might sound good, but at the end of the day, the executives are going to say, please tell me, where is the money part? Because when you say ROI to an executive, that doesn't mean your retweets, and that doesn't necessarily mean your fans or how many +1s you got. Not that that's not important to other people, but definitely not to the executives. So Valerie is really a master of metrics. Okay, so we're going to try to go through 3 practices. I'm going to ask you, are you ready? Okay, come on. I was on a plane all night. I have a lot of energy. Let's hear it. Enthusiasm. Are you ready? Woo! Thank you. Okay, so before we start, 2 things I have to tell you. Number 1, social media tends to grow organically in some cases. Many cases, it started in the communications department. There are strategists who are on a core team. They pull from departments of champions who raise their hands and say, yeah, I want to be on a team too. And then there's the general public. So that's sort of your little diagram of how social media runs through the organization. Social media is always strategic. That's my social media wheel. And basically what it says is don't do anything unless you're planning strategically for social media. From your policies that start in the audit process, when you're a communications organizer, you're dealing with the listening, you're dealing with your content and communication, you're making sure you're putting it through the right channels. It's always strategy. And in my book, what I do is I take this wheel and I show how every practice is connected to the wheel so that there's no mistaking. This isn't tactics. This is what happens before you roll out and you implement. Okay, so the comms organizer, that's the example where you can see P4s. I hope you can see P4s are tied to different parts of the wheel. If you can't see the visual, this will be available for you later. Okay, so we know, I talked about Priya, how she was listening. Different models for listening. In some cases, smaller companies, it's always a hub and spoke, but you're listening, maybe you're doing some overall listening, and then you're routing information to different departments, and they're using it. When you get into larger organizations, more savvy, communications might be doing, as a comms organizer, you might be doing overall listening, but then helping different departments where they're going to listen on their own and maybe guiding them with some of their metrics and what they need to pay attention to. Listen first. We're developing content, two-prong approach. Yes, we're going to be taking existing and tweeting it. We're curating it through different channels. We are finding compelling content. We're crowdsourcing. So you have two choices, existing or new. No matter what, you're going to share, but that's the issue. It's not that we can't find the content. It's not that, okay, maybe it took us a little time to get used to different styles of writing, from our tweets to our Facebook posts to now we're on Google Plus, and oh, I'm on Pinterest too. But in any case, it's the sharing part. How are we sharing? How do we get everybody on the same page? So I know a lot of organizations that are using department calendars. They are saying, okay, so we know there are certain programs, and we're going to have AM posts on Facebook and AM posts on Twitter, and we're going to do PM posts on Facebook and PM posts on Twitter. Well, yeah, that's all well and good when you want to work in a silo. Now, step it up a notch. The comms organizer gets the organization used to a universal calendar, which says, hey guys, we're all in this together. What happens when you launch a product? Is it only PR? No, everybody's on board. And everybody wants to talk about it through social media. So you get your universal calendar, and however you want to do it in some sort of document that's, maybe it's Google Docs, or maybe you have it in a repository somewhere you can edit it. But basically, it lays out what's the department's doing, what's the focus, what's the theme, what are the links. Why do we have 30 bit.ly links on the same product when maybe we need 2 or 3, depending, based on the channel, that go to a landing page that capture information? Those are the things that go into a universal calendar. And the keywords. Are we all using the same keywords? Are we capturing certain tags, descriptions? So we're stepping it up a notch, moving from departmental calendars to overall universal. And that's where everybody can support one another's efforts. Okay, so we have this great sharing. You've seen the calendars. Really, you know what we're saying? We're saying, guess what? It's time for a playbook. Let's use a social media playbook or a share book. Why not? So the communications department has a great program that's going on. Create something that lets the other departments know, even beyond what I just said, the calendaring, but who's the audience? What are the goals and the objectives? Who's the audience? What traditional tactics are we using to support it? Who are the contact people? So if you get a question, send it on over to Media Relations. We'll be happy to answer. Your playbook, once you get these rolling, people get used to them and they rely on them. And this has to be documents that are created and shared centrally in a repository so everybody can get their hands on it. Now, I'm going to even step it back a little bit further, because one other job, role, responsibility of the comms organizer is the fact that social media has to have purpose. So all those profiles for all those companies that are dark, what is that, right? What's the strategy there? We know what happens. We see it all the time. Twitter feed goes dark, no Facebook posts. Oh, you go check out, somebody says they're a blogger, you go to their blog and there hasn't been a post for 2 years. This prevents it. This is called a purpose brief, and it's a simple document that could be an online form. It's filled out, but the communications department helps other areas to develop the profiles in certain cases to guide them and say, hey, if you need help, this is more strategic. Let me give you an idea here. Here's the information. Let's go over it, approve, build it. And then you're working with maybe the web people or you're building it yourself. In any case, this is the type of tool that prevents all of those dark, inactive, purposeless profiles. And there's the whole wheel of what the comms organizer does. I won't read it to you, but it's basically the things that we covered and then some. Okay, so there's Mary again as the pre-crisis doctor. Conversations are happening in abundance. We have to start putting them into buckets. Is anybody doing that? Questions? Okay, how many minutes? 5? Okay, I'll fly through. Put questions in buckets. We are listening, evaluating, and responding. They're in the form of everything from bad experiences to product questions to marketing, promotional questions. When you do that, you can't read that, and I even said you can't read that. This is a wake-up call. Companies are building extensive comment response charts, mapping out who's saying what, when, where, and how. Really, really important. And when it comes to gray side is negative, in the middle, the dark purple are more the general questions for communications, marketing, specific departments. The other, the lighter area, anybody can answer because that's the happy box. That says these are all positive and we can share. But you can see the extent of what companies are doing. They're going far and beyond. And this is just, I grabbed the top of those boxes so that you could see. This is just to say there's a lot of actions out there that are causing companies to react. If we don't react the right way, the next action, what's going to happen? It's going to move up to escalation. So we have to be really careful and get our buckets documented, understand how to respond, get it into a chart. This helps people, this helps departments. And there you can see where if it's correct information, if it's happy information, everybody shares it. Is it a general company question? Is it maybe a product-specific question? Is it a personal service question? Is it a question that we shouldn't even answer? It's for a peer. We know that based on other conversation. And then all those other levels of escalation and inappropriate comments, which usually is handled by public relations. It's handled now also by specific departments with public relations. It's handled by customer service. But you have to know that. You have to build a new chart that says this is the social media org chart, and this is how we're doing it, where it starts with customer service, but at the very end, when it gets really bad and it's escalation number 5, you have your executives who are now responding, and maybe they're doing it on a blog or a video on YouTube. But that's what you're building. It's a new crisis org chart. And there's all your crisis. And don't forget, we have to tech test our crisis tools because you don't want to be tech testing your tools in the middle of a crisis or figuring out, gosh, what's the best chart to show, before, during, and after. No way. You want to have all that set. So that is your pre-crisis doctor, master of the metrics. Just know a lot happens underneath the water, that iceberg. Okay, so all the tactical stuff on top, all the fun sharing. Start with your goals and objectives because that's the only way that you're going to get your metrics in place. Very sad number. Oh my goodness. What is it? 13% feel that social media, their campaigns are effective in terms of measurement. What is that? How can so many people be doing social media and we're not being effective? Wrong. Okay. Biggest problem with the metrics, I said it before. Know who you're reporting to. What are the goals and objectives, and what are they expecting? So higher level, just focus on that top bar up there. Your executives, yeah, they're concerned about reputation, definitely. They're concerned about customer satisfaction. And guess what? They want sales. Okay, on the bottom, it makes sense that there's more engagement data for community managers and people who are running programs, it all makes sense, but you have to know what you're gathering. You have to understand the metrics. Sometimes I break it out into, there's inform metrics, there's inspire metrics, there's engage metrics. Inform metrics, executives don't really care about so much because it's only what we're doing. Oh, guess what? This week we had 20 tweets. The next week we had 30 tweets. It's our own. You're not sharing anything. When you get into the middle with the inspire, it means you have inspired somebody to do something. That's a little bit higher level, and that's where you see shares and people are building content around what you're saying, which is more important. And then, of course, when you get to that true, deep engagement, think about two people getting married. They're engaged. It's pretty deep engagement. So sometimes I don't look at engagement as, oh, thank you. It's important. You know, when somebody tweets me a thanks for the RT, it's a type of engagement, but it's not the kind the executives want, let's face it. So you can see those buckets, what they're concerned about: leads, sales, customer service, reputation, sentiment. They also want to know what are the competitors doing and how do we stack up. Okay, so looking at competitor share of voice. There it is, break it out. High impact value metrics versus lower level participation. I'm not saying it's not important, just know what you're capturing. Always know your goals and objectives on top. Oh, and by the way, make sure you measure over time. Measure apples to apples. So if you're looking at sentiment for yourself week to week and you want to compare that to the sentiment of your competitor, don't do that once a month. It has to be the same. Make sure, put it in a spreadsheet. Put it in a chart. What do your executives want? Find out what they want. Report to them. Bring it on. We have the tools, we have the technology, and we have the brains to do it. We have our goals and objectives in place. There's no reason why we can't report. Just remember, it's not our metrics alone. That's not going to do it. Where social media analytics end for us, website analytics begin, and then there's conversion to sales. We have to be overlaying. I always do overlay maps. I look at a period of time and I say, okay, I got it. Look at all the activity that was generated by the public relations. Same time, overlay map web. Look at what happened on the website. They all went to the landing page. They all became leads. What happened? Sales, conversion, 70%. That's the best way to do it. Can't do it alone. So that's where you're relying sometimes on your marketing brothers. And there is your master of the metrics wheel. Again, lots of roles and opportunities, work. But you know what? Again, it's strategic. Be strategic, be valuable. Executives worry about this, solve their problems, sit at the strategy table. Sometimes it's easier said than done. It's hard work, but it's so worth it. And there you go. It's this hybrid approach. We had a social talk before about the agency. I believe that whether it's from companies or it's in agencies or you're a sole practitioner, you have to learn to be hybrid and surround yourself with new knowledge, skills, and ability. I'm not saying traditional is going away. I still use traditional. Absolutely. I don't know many CEOs who still don't want to be in the Wall Street Journal. I know one of my clients, when we launch in May, they want to be on CNN. Okay, so it's still there. An opportunity. So I'm going to leave you with one last question. What stands between you, the hybrid, and the 8 new practices? No one. Only you, so you better start from the inside out. And that insight also means you as well. Thank you very much, and I'd love to take your questions.